Welcome back to Inside Story. Brigadier Mark Carlton-Smith's statement is the latest in a series of similar statements to the same effect in recent times. Army General David McKernan, commander of NATO forces in Afghanistan, has said that the solution in the country has to be political. On Saturday, as he prepares to take his post as head of Central Command, General David Petraeus said that he expected the fight against the insurgents in Afghanistan to get worse before it got better. And the Afghan President Hamid Karzai said this week he had asked the King of Saudi Arabia to mediate in talks with the insurgents and called on Taliban leader Mullah Omar to return to his homeland and to make peace. The Taliban rejected the offer. Meanwhile, the Taliban continues to hold firm to their demands of full withdrawal of foreign troops and insists they will not recognize the current government. Well, we're still joined by our guests in Kabul, Mullah Abdus Salam Zaif, in Islamabad, retired General Asad Durrani. Mullah Zaif, will the Taliban ever accept some of those conditions, like recognizing the constitution of the current Afghan government?
I think putting this kind of condition before negotiation mean they are stopping the process of negotiation. I think this is not necessary to put this kind of condition before negotiation. I think the Taliban, they are not recognizing the constitution. They are not recognizing even the government. They said the government is not the independent government.
Do you believe it's a puppet government?
Puppet of American.
Do you believe it's a puppet?
But I will tell you, the government is not really independent. But something really related with the government in the beginning to prepare the situation for negotiation and to start the first step. Like the Mr. Karzai, he said, I sent the letter to Khadim al-Haramain Sharifain to enter to this issue and to find the way of solution. I think this is the good step, but this step is not enough for the Taliban, because the Taliban said the really problem is not between Mr. Karzai and Taliban. The really problem started from America. They attacked in Afghanistan and they invaded to Afghanistan and they killed thousand people of Afghanistan and they destroyed the country and they occupied the country. This is the really problem, but Mr. Karzai, before to start negotiation with the Taliban, he will not put any condition before. And also he will convince the American and the NATO force in Afghanistan that the using of force is not the solution.
All right,
and,
sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you. Let's go to Asad Durrani. Sorry, Mullah Zaif. Let's go to Asad Durrani. The Saudis, as we say, have been asked by Hamid Karzai to mediate. Do you think that the Saudis have been reluctant to mediate, or that nothing has come of this because, as Mullah Zaif is saying, the Taliban just don't want to talk without or with these preconditions?
Now, about these preconditions first, and I'll come to Saudis very quickly. These preconditions, I think Mullah Zaif also was mentioning to them, they are presented as your opening moves. Now, these are negotiable. Once you start the process, you find out that certain preconditions are dropped. The Saudis bringing in is to give the whole thing a little respect and credibility, because the Saudis certainly could talk to some of the groups amongst the Taliban, amongst the resistance. The Taliban are not a monolith. It's not one group. There are a number of groups. They will, I'm sure, ultimately, if they find that some of the groups were listening to them, and the Karzai government and the ISF, etc., were also making the right types of movements, that is the time that the Saudis might show their hands a little openly, because they do not want to get involved in a process which from the start may seem deemed to fail. So unless some preparations are done covertly, the Saudis might not say openly that they are now in it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the Taliban, sorry, it's interesting you mentioned that the Taliban is not just this one sort of monolithic group. What about the Pakistani Taliban on the other side of the border? How much of a role do they have to play in peace in Afghanistan?
Once things start happening on the Afghan side, the Taliban that we have two types actually. One are only Afghan oriented, that is that they want only freedom to help their Afghan kith and kin, Afghan tribesmen. The other are basically resisting the Pakistani army operations. So let's talk only of the first group that is concerned with the Afghan resistance, or the resistance in Afghanistan against foreign occupation, as they call it. Now they get calibrated with the movement on that side. Only a year ago, that was the idea between the two governments, Pakistan and Afghanistan. We'll have the binational jirga, and then this binational jirga will task the local tribes to take care of the Taliban on both sides, the Pakistanis on this side, the Afghans on that side. So I think they will follow the lead of their, the parent groups like Haqqani and others on the Afghan side.
Mullah Zaif, many people who are watching this will be wondering, why does the US and NATO forces and maybe even the Afghan government want to talk to the Taliban? Because when they think of the Taliban, they also think of Al Qaeda. You have an opportunity now to clear things up for us if you want. At the moment, is the link between the Taliban and Al Qaeda merely operational or ideological?
The Taliban, they are independent people in Afghanistan, and they were independent before. But they gave an asylum to some member of Al Qaeda by some culture idioms before. But they were not the part of Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda is a network working in the whole world, but the Taliban, they are working in Afghanistan, not anywhere. That's always the Mullah Muhammad Umar Mujahid declaring that we are not interfering in the internal issue of any country. And we are continuing the struggle in Afghanistan just for Afghanistan and for independence of Afghanistan, for coming the real independent government in Afghanistan. And I think right now this is necessary for the Taliban to find more supporters in the war, because the war community, they became against Taliban and they are fighting with them. And the Taliban, they were in isolation before. And some people in the world, they were sending the support to the Taliban. And Al Qaeda is one of a supporter of Taliban, and the Taliban necessary to welcome to them.
Mullah
But
Abdus Salam Zaif,
anyway, the Taliban, they are independent.
I really have to interrupt you. You have made your point. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Mullah Zaif in Kabul and retired General Asad Durrani in Islamabad. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts. And thank you so much, the viewer, for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.